Would you believe that a boy waiting for his mom to finish mopping the break room is the only one who can restore a major bank's entire transaction system? No one ever asked his name. No one cared what he was sketching in that old notebook. Until every account froze, every ATM went dark, and the boy stood up, like he'd been waiting for this moment all along. That boy sat in the same spot every day, right beside an old receipt printer, under a flickering fluorescent light on gray tile floors. He didn't play on a phone. He didn't talk. He just wrote, "Quietest for him out in a return." Symbols no one understood. Strings of code like whispers between him and something. Adults had forgotten how to hear. Then one day, the entire bank system stopped responding. And only the boy didn't panic. This isn't a story about a prodigy raised in a lab. It's about a kid who learned to read code from broken fans and ATM lights, who memorized logic not from textbooks, but from watching patterns blink and fail. When the IT team lost control and the CEO froze, one person knew exactly what was happening. Not someone with a badge. Not someone with a degree. Just a boy no one had ever asked. What do you think? It all started on a morning that seemed completely ordinary. The floors of Horizon Bank's main branch gleamed as usual. Bank staff walked quickly with coffee cups and wireless earbuds, minds occupied with the strategic fund review at 9 a.m. Up in an a.m., no one noticed the petite woman mopping the edges of the ground floor tech wing, and even fewer noticed the boy sitting quietly next to an old receipt printer under a flickering fluorescent light that buzzed above the gray tile floor. He didn't play on a phone. He didn't talk. He just wrote, symbols no one could understand. Lines of code, like whispered messages between him and something adults had forgotten how to hear. His name was Alex Huerta, the son of the night shift cleaning lady, a name that appeared on no employee list, no security badge. But he sat there every day, same place. That printer desk had become his invisible domain. People assumed he was doodling, scribbling nonsense. But inside that notebook was a personal map of the bank's internal systems, silently observed for 2 years. Every software update, every shift in server behavior. Alex remembered them all not in words, but in logical patterns. He'd once seen a similar error at a local ATM near his neighborhood, a transaction frozen in a recursive loop. No technician could fix it, but Alex could. A simple handwritten script, tested on his second-hand computer at home. No one knew. He didn't need them to. At 8:46, preen, wearing him. Just as the CTO entered the boardroom and the main display lit up, the bank's entire transaction system came to a halt. Screens went black. ATMs flashed red error codes across the city. Silent alarms blinked behind locked server doors. System error, a manager shouted. All backup servers are dead. Tension spread like smoke across the crisp lines of pressed suits. Phones rang. Terminals beeped. Shouted commands filled the air. Everyone had a theory. No one had answers. They only knew one thing: everything had stopped. Alex chose the same spot every day next to the old receipt printer, where the flickering fluorescent light cast uneven shadows on the gray tile floor. While the adults bustled around, he sat still, focused. No phone a warning, or no conversation. He wrote steadily in his notebook, strange winding symbols that, to anyone watching, might seem like a game. But to Alex, they were a language, a private system of code only he could understand. And on that day, when the entire banking system failed to respond, people panicked. Everyone except the boy. Alex set his pen down. Quietly, calmly, to Suriname. Watching, the bank had gone silent. But inside his mind, everything had just begun. Alex Huerta was born in a room barely over 20 square meters, tucked behind a labor market near the train tracks. The small unit, with peeling walls, constantly echoed the roar of passing trains and the clanking of old pipes in the walls like the tired breathing of a city past its prime. That was where he grew up, with his mother, Isabel, a Mexican immigrant who worked night shifts cleaning at Horizon Bank. There was no one else to watch him at night, so from the age of 6, Alex went with her to the bank. He sat quietly in the staff break room or beside an old printer, under the flickering fluorescent light. While his mother pushed the mop cart and scrubbed corners, Alex observed. No one paid him any attention. And in that invisibility, he found space to see. He watched the engineers how they typed commands, fixed devices, responded to system glitches. He noticed how the lights blinked when servers lagged, how the error sounds changed, how transaction graphs glitched. He didn't learn through words, but through visuals, sounds, and instinct. At home, he had an old computer his mother had salvaged from the office trash. Not fast, not new, but enough to simulate. What he overheard at night, he rebuilt during the day. He didn't know the names of the algorithms, but he understood how they moved. When he was 8, during one of his mother's shifts near the tech room, Alex saw a technician struggling to fix an ATM. Hidden behind a trash bin, he watched. That night, he disassembled a broken radio at home and recreated the input lock response mechanism using copper wire and an LED light. His mother woke up at 2 a.m. Wena saw him hunched over the desk lamp, eyes locked in, and simply held his shoulder. She said nothing, just stroked his hair and exhaled. As long as you understand what you're doing, I won't stop you. Alex had never studied programming at school, but his visual memory could redraw system schematics after a single glance. He used a torn notebook to write down the lines of code he overheard, then rewrote them by hand at home and tested them through simulations. He discovered errors in old ATMs across the neighborhood loops causing transactions to freeze, mistimed pulses throwing off command recognition. No one around noticed, but he did, because it felt like something was whispering to him. No one taught Alex. No one believed a child could understand any of this. But it was precisely because no one watched him that he had room to see more. That boy grew up in the shadow of complex systems, and in that total silence, Alex read what no entire room of engineers had ever seen. Alex Huerta was born in an apartment just over 20 square meters, located behind a labor market near the train tracks. A tiny room with peeling walls, where you could always hear the roar of passing trains and the clanking of old pipes like the heavy breathing of a tired, old city. That was where he grew up with his mother, Isabel, a Mexican woman who worked night shifts cleaning at Horizon Bank. There was no one else to look after Alex at night, so since he was 6, he went with his mother to the bank. When other buildings shut down, Horizon Bank still had lights on. The boy sat quietly in the staff lounge or next to the old receipt printer, under flickering fluorescent lights. While his mother pushed the mop cart, scrubbing every edge of the hallway, Alex just watched. No one noticed him. And in that invisibility, he found the most valuable space. He observed the engineers, how they typed commands, repaired devices, reacted to system errors. He saw the lights blink when a server glitched, heard the irregular beeps, remembered how graphs moved when a transaction was denied. He didn't learn through word, but through visuals, sounds, and instinct. While everyone thought he was just doodling in a notebook, Alex was drawing system maps, logic loops, signal paths, data flows. Every time he saw something strange, he wrote it down. At home, he recreated it by coding on the old computer his mom had picked up from the company's trash. His mother once told there was a time Alex saw someone fix an ATM just once. That same night, he took apart a broken radio at home and recreated the operating mechanism using copper wire and LED lights. She didn't understand what her son was doing, but she saw his eyes, not the eyes of a kid playing, but the eyes of someone tracing a structure. Many nights, after cleaning an empty conference room, she'd return and find her son sitting motionless at a desk, eyes fixed on the server monitor through the glass. No one guided him. No one taught him. But Alex remembered every moment of abnormal device response. Even the smallest sounds became data in his memory. At home, everything was cramped. The kitchen doubled as a bedroom, damp corners, a fan that screeched every time the weather turned hot. But inside the old computer, Alex created another world. His own system where no one stopped him, where every error could be understood if you observed long enough. He discovered errors in old ATMs around the neighborhood. Transactions stuck in loops, signal glitches caused by timing mismatches. No one in the area noticed, but he cared, because it felt like something was whispering to him. Each night, when his mom said, "Let's go home," Alex would pack up his notebook and silently follow her. But inside his head, the system kept running. He didn't need recognition. He didn't need anyone to explain. He learned through repetition, through gaps, through things grown-ups ignored. That boy grew up in the shadows of complex systems. And in that complete silence, Alex read things no team of engineers had ever seen. That morning, when the system of Horizon Bank suddenly stopped working, the technical room turned into a chaotic beehive. Engineers rushed between stations, headsets at full volume, error dashboards glowing red on the screens. Everyone was talking at once, but no one truly listened to anyone. Alarm lights blinked on the wall, casting a cold red glow with each pulse. The smell of warm plastic from the equipment spread faintly. The sound of keyboards tapping, internal phone ringing, metal doors slamming all blended into the suffocating noise of a technological crisis. In a hidden corner, Alex stood behind the glass door, eyes not leaving the central screen. He recognized the pattern. A jammed signal. An abnormal command loop. He knew where the error was, could even replicate it. But no one looked his way. When he gently knocked on the tech room door, no one turned. Only when someone heard the door open did the man turn and frown. "Kid, you're not allowed in here," he said, both annoyed and indifferent. Alex didn't speak. He opened his notebook, pointing to a line of code he had noted the night before. His hand trembled slightly, but his eyes were steady. "This is straight sure. Might be the cause," he said softly. The engineer glanced, scoffed. "This isn't a programming class. Give that to your mom and get out." Another engineer stepped up, looked at Alex's notebook for a few seconds, then shook his head, smiling half-mockingly. "That's really cute," he said. "He thinks this is a game." A woman with a supervisor name tag walked past, glanced at the scene and said quickly, "Get the boy out. This is a restricted area." All three turned away, leaving Alex standing in a room full of noise and glaring lights. Another staff member who had just entered, seeing the boy, snapped. "Why is there a child here? Who's responsible?" Alex's mother was mopping at the far end of the hallway. She heard but couldn't respond in time. The boy was gently pushed toward the door, not by words, but by looks that needed no explanation. "You don't belong here." Alex quietly backed away. He still held his notebook. His eyes looked down, but his hand kept the page open. He didn't cry. He wasn't angry, but his steps slowed. The certainty in his eyes. Now was just stillness. He stood behind the glass, said nothing, just watched. The lights kept blinking. The servers were still frozen, and the adults still passed by him as if he were invisible. He wondered, not for the first time, if I had spoken more clearly, if I had shouted. But even those thoughts faded. He wasn't born to be listened to, at least not yet. They didn't know that the scribbled code was the key to restarting the system. And they didn't know that from afar, someone else had seen everything. On the other side of the hallway, the air was completely different. On the mezzanine level, the executive board meeting had just ended. Mrs. Zegu, Evelyn Cortez, the bank's CEO, stepped out earlier than scheduled. As she passed the technical floor, she paused for less than 3 seconds. But her eyes landed exactly on the page Alex had open. No one saw her pause. No one saw her hand gently touch her phone, as if about to take a picture. She said nothing, just glanced at the assistant behind her and continued walking. But from that moment, something changed. A silent current began to shift. And for the first time, the gaze of power fell on the most forgotten place. For 3 days after the system failure, no one mentioned the boy with the notebook. Not a single glance, not a single question. Alex still sat in the exact same corner every evening near the old receipt printer, under the flickering fluorescent light. But this time, he wrote nothing. He just stared at the wall. He didn't leave early. He didn't shout. He simply shut down. The first evening after the incident, his mother gently asked, "Are you feeling tired today?" Alex just shook his head. He still packed his books, still followed his mother home like always. But his eyes seemed to be looking at something else. His silence spread into the air. His mother started noticing more. She glanced at him secretly while cleaning the nearby corridor. He didn't fidget. Didn't touch a phone, didn't doze off. He just sat in that exact posture like a door half closed, waiting for something to open. The engineers from that day didn't remember his face. The female supervisor never came back. The servers were restarted manually by a different team. No one knew the real cause. No one bothered to find out anymore. No one knew on Terminal Wash, except Alex. From a hidden spot near the night transaction counter, Alex still observed. No more excitement. No more notes. Just quiet watching of repetitive behavior. He began to notice strange things. A new IT staff working night shifts never brought a laptop. A hard drive replaced but with mismatched QR codes. A circuit panel with rewired cables and no report. All tiny details, but Alex saw them all. One time, he saw a network cable unplugged at 3A, then plugged back in after 20 minutes. No error was filed. Another time, a command flashed on the monitor for just 1 second before disappearing. He tried to memorize and later copied down every character still lingering in his memory. And for the first time, his silence wasn't out of fear. It was because something in his mind was connecting. One night, his mother was cleaning the administrative hallway near the executive offices. She let Alex sit at the guest lounge a few meters away. Alex sat on a gray leather chair, legs gently swinging, still holding the notebook now without new lines added. But his eyes kept moving, watching one Shimbin, and when a woman in a gray suit passed by, the boy instinctively looked up. Mrs. Evelyn Cortez, the CEO of the bank, passed him like any other adult. A faint scent of perfume drifted by. Her heels made no sound. But just a few seconds later, she stopped. She didn't turn around, just stood still. At that moment, the ceiling light cast a beam straight down the hallway, drawing a sharp boundary dividing the light and the shadow where Alex sat. Then she said to her assistant, "That boy, is he here often?" The assistant looked where she pointed, then gently nodded, without saying a word. For the first time, someone paused to ask, and Alex from within his silence had caught that gaze. A current had just switched on silent, but strong enough to shift the wind in that hallway. On the 5th evening since the incident, the wind in the bank hallway was colder than usual. The glass panels reflected the gray-yellow light from the old filament bulbs, making the tech floor look like an abandoned basement. Alex was still sitting there, but this time something had changed. His eyes no longer focused on the meaningless void on the wall. Instead, they followed every human movement, as if each gesture was a puzzle piece he was silently solving. His gaze observed each action not like a curious child, but like someone solving a problem. An IT staff member entered the machine room, made an unlocking motion, but his actions were slower than usual. A device made a small click, like the snap of a fingernail, but Alex heard it clearly. He noted it in his mind. In his notebook, for the first time in days, a new line appeared: inaccurate operation, suspected device insertion. Upstairs, Evelyn Cortez was also staying up late. Her office rarely had lights on after 9 p.m., but tonight, the curtain was still slightly open, and the light reflected down the hallway where Alex sat. She didn't come down, didn't signal anything, but her hand, for the first time, reached for something on her desk, the internal file containing the list of night shift staff. She typed a few lines on her computer, pulled up the security camera on the side screen. A small window appeared showing exactly the spot where Alex was sitting. The boy didn't know he was being watched, nor did he know that his expression, that gaze, had made an adult pause. For a moment, Mrs. Cortez's eyes moved from the screen to the desk. Her hand pulled out a card. On it read, "David Chen, System Security Specialist. Night shifts Monday, Tuesday, Thursday." David, the young engineer Alex had suspected the week before. The one who never brought a laptop. That night, she called no one, said nothing. She simply left her office door slightly ajar, just enough for the light to spill into the hallway. Alex still didn't know, but when he looked up again, a strange beam of light shone into his eyes. He turned to look down the hallway. The mezzanine window was brighter than usual, and for the first time he stood up. Not because he wanted to leave, not because he had lost hope, but because something inside him, quiet yet certain, had just begun to move. That night, Alex stepped toward the internal network diagram hanging in the tech waiting room. He stood looking at it for a long time. His hand rested on the edge of the frame, then suddenly pulled out a small piece of paper hidden behind it. Another diagram drawn by himself. It wasn't colorful, just a few pencil lines, arrows, and 3 lines of command code. But it was a map of vulnerabilities. He quietly picked it up, folded it into quarters, and put it in his shirt pocket. Right at that moment, from behind him, a soft voice spoke. "When did you find that?" "Wakinimus, Sirton." Alex turned around. A stranger graying hair, wearing a staff badge but not an IT uniform. His face wasn't stern, just calm. Alex stayed silent, said nothing. But he didn't hide the paper either. The man looked at him, without judgment, just nodded gently with a smile barely visible. Then he walked away, leaving just enough quiet behind. No one else witnessed that exchange. No cameras, no words, no trace. But that very moment, so quiet it seemed meaningless, became the hinge point to which all later events would trace back. A soft footstep, a glance of recognition, a silent ray of light across the hallway. That night, only 3 people knew something was quietly shifting. At 2:17 a.m., Informationum Anion. The door to the server room opened in absolute silence. There was no alarm, no hurried footsteps, just the sound of a disabled magnetic lock, and a figure quietly stepping in under the dim hallway light. Alex was still seated in the corridor, behind the auxiliary transaction counter. He heard the door, an unmistakable sound that only someone truly listening would notice. His eyes moved slightly, turning toward the crack that led to the server room. It was him again, David Chen. But this time, he carried a rectangular object wrapped in dark fabric. Not a laptop. No power cord, no bag. He walked alone, his steps steady, leaving no sound. Alex held his breath, though his hand remained on the notebook. His heart pounded, but his gaze stayed fixed. He saw David pull out a small device, plug it into an auxiliary port behind the server cabinet, a port unused for the past 4 years. David moved quickly, covering the camera angle with a clipboard too skillfully to be coincidence. Alex didn't write anything. He just watched, committing every detail to memory. Then, he stood up. He didn't run in. He didn't shout. He walked toward the internal telephone panel near the side door, the one used by tech staff to report system faults. He picked up the receiver. His hand trembled. The first ring went unanswered. He put it down, then picked it up again. This time, he dialed directly to the executive office upstairs. The light still shone faintly behind the frosted glass of that office. Alex didn't know if anyone would answer, but he spoke clearly, hoarsely, and with certainty. "I want to report unauthorized access. Technical room A. Perpetrator David Chen." There was silence on the other end. No confirmation, but Alex had spoken, and that was enough. He hung up. Didn't wait for a reply. Didn't expect to be believed. Then he returned to his seat. Sat down. Still didn't write. But this time, he placed both hands firmly on the desk, opened his notebook, and turned directly to the page with the internal network diagram. Just then, the door to the server room opened again. David walked out, his pace unhurried, as if nothing had happened. But as he turned the corner of the hallway, their eyes met. And for the first time, Alex didn't look down. David paused for half a second, stared straight at the boy, said nothing. Alex said nothing either, but in his eyes, calm, sharp, unwavering, there was something that made David walk faster. His silhouette disappeared around the corner without a sound. 3 minutes later, an alarm rang from the mezzanine floor. An emergency signal had been triggered. No one saw the boy touch any button, but everything began with a gaze that did not look away. A boy with no title, no employee badge, yet in that silent night, he was the only one who spoke up. And that was the last thing anyone expected. The morning after the emergency signal, the technical floor was sealed off. A security barrier was set up at the entrance, and all staff were relocated to Zone A temporarily. No public announcement was made. Only uneasy glances among the engineers and the sudden absence of one person, David Chen. Alex still showed up as usual. No one asked him anything. He sat down in the same spot, opened his notebook, but this time he didn't write. His eyes stared into the space ahead, But inside, every detail was being reorganized. Upstairs, Mrs. Evelyn Cortez did not leave her office. But for the first time, a dossier appeared on the conference table with no sender's name. Inside was a scanned copy of Alex's handwritten notes. Neat, clear, describing abnormal behaviors, system error sequences, and connections no one had ever detected. At the same time, the internal cybersecurity unit traced data from the auxiliary port and discovered that the entire attack code had been overwritten by 3 blocking lines, sent from an anonymous account 3 minutes earlier. That code, Dunharum, matched the one handwritten in Alex's notebook. No one knew how he accessed the system. No one saw him touch a terminal. But the system log was clear the command was executed from an unidentified internal device, with an IP matching an old simulator once left unused on basement level B3. An old simulator, a machine touched by only one person, the quiet boy in the corner, every night. That same day, Mrs. Cortez called for a high-level internal meeting. Among the documents distributed to each department head, there was a new, short file, the only name on it, Alex Huerta. No employee ID, no title, just 2 lines of description. Unverified threat response source, high accuracy anomaly tracking. She didn't sign it, but the file remained on the table. In her office, the old notebook captured from a hidden phone was sealed in a private envelope. The note outside read, "No leak, no attribution. Monitor only." That evening, as Alex accompanied his mother like always, a man in a gray shirt stepped out from the elevator. No name tag, no greetings. He simply nodded gently to Alex's mother. Then he placed a small USB drive on the table beside Alex without a word. Alex looked at the object, then at the man. He didn't ask anything. He just picked it up, nodded, and for the first time walked into the server room no longer as an observer. No one had issued an order. There was no contract, just a silent form of acknowledgement. He rebooted the old simulator, inserted the USB. The black screen lit up. A single line appeared. "You're not invisible." "But we saw you." Alex pressed his lips together. Half of him was nervous. The other half finally calm. For the first time, the hidden world behind the system answered back. A small hand. A quiet line of code. A step into the light without needing a spotlight. That's how a boy no one noticed began to be seen. 3 days later, an internal announcement from Horizon Bank was sent to all employees. An official internal investigation was confirmed. David Chen was suspended pending investigation related to system security violations and improper handling of procedures. No one said anything, but the news spread faster than any bulletin ever posted in the system. Those who had worked night shifts with David became noticeably quieter. The IT staff, who once ignored Alex's glances, began to look at him a little longer, as if realizing something had happened, and they had missed it. Alex didn't change a thing. He still sat in the same place, still didn't speak. But this time, a temporary badge was pinned to his shirt. Guest analyst restricted so restricted access. No one explained why he had it, and no one dared take it off. In a closed-door technical meeting, Mrs. Cortez appeared in person on the tech floor for the first time. No announcement. No PR staff. She simply walked in, looked at each face, and paused at Alex. She didn't say his name, didn't touch his shoulder, but she nodded. And in that room full of seasoned engineers, the gesture resounded like a declaration. After the meeting, a young engineer, the one assigned to mentor the night shift, approached Alex. He didn't ask any questions. He simply handed over a newly updated internal network structure packet. "Take a look at these sections. Will you? They don't seem quite right." Alex took it, said nothing. But for the first time, someone handed him something not out of pity, but out of need for precision. That same day, Alex's mother was invited to a private meeting in the executive office. The conversation lasted only 20 minutes. When she came out, she said nothing, but her eyes were red, and she held a thin sheet of paper. It was a long-term technical scholarship for a special contributor in the field of system security. No name was printed, but the recipient's part was in bold. Alex Huerta. Ursero. That evening, in the mezzanine elevator, A security guard turned to Alex when it was just the two of them. "What were you doing down there?" people are saying. "You actually knew how to block a real attack." Alex didn't answer. He simply looked straight at the ceiling light above, his voice soft as breath. "I just noticed what others didn't." The elevator door opened with a soft chime. Alex stepped out first, his pace unhurried but steady. The security guard remained still, eyes following the boy's figure as it disappeared into the lit hallway. He wasn't watching out of curiosity, but as if witnessing something that had never happened before. Not because the boy had said anything grand, but because, after so many years, for the first time, they truly heard someone everyone else had overlooked. A glance that shifted, a sentence that seemed light as wind, and a boy who finally made the whole system stop and listen. There was no award ceremony, no newspaper photo. Just a new identifier silently appeared in Horizon Bank's internal system, IDXH097. Analyst support inactive under scholarship. Username Ahuerta Description temporarily inactive due to participation in National Technical Scholarship Program. A single line of code. Easily overlooked. But in the bank's security system, that account had access privileges reserved only for the high-level incident response team. Every week, from a network address in another state, a data packet would arrive in Horizon's system. Small, no author listed, but every line in it always matched the vulnerabilities the internal IT team was trying to resolve. No one confirmed. No one denied. Elsewhere, Alex studied at a small technical research center. No dormir, no car. He walked over 3 miles to class each day, still holding his old notebook. He wasn't the top student, but he was the only one granted access to the server room at night. His mother worked as a janitor at a nearby dorm. Still came home late. Still took the bus. But every evening, she paused in front of Alex's classroom, looking through the glass, not calling out, just making sure the light inside was still on. Life didn't change loudly, but from the highest layer of digital security to the quietest footsteps, everything had shifted just slightly. No one brought up the past, but no one fully forgot. It's just that, from that day on, a few people began to pay closer attention to the quiet kids in the corners of rooms, the ones who didn't ask much, but watched closely. The ones who went unnoticed until they appeared at exactly the right moment. And perhaps, right now, there's a pair of eyes like that, watching the system you're using, not to break it, but to understand, to silently keep safe the things you never even think about. So if one day you see a child with their head down quietly in a lit room, don't look away too quickly. That might be the only person who truly understands how this system works when no one's watching. So, what about you? Have you ever overlooked someone quietly sitting in the corner of a room? Are you certain you always recognize who's truly observing the systems you trust? They may not stand out. They may not say much, but sometimes they're the only ones keeping everything from falling apart. If you've ever been that person or ever ignored someone like that, share your story below. We read every comment. Thank you for joining Unveiled Wealth on this journey. If this story touched something inside you, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. We'll be back soon. And who knows, the next story might be yours. See you next time.